our determination, and just reading through what the Security Council has decided in New York, our determination too to see proper access to the site so that loved ones can know that the bodies of their relatives and friends can be brought home and treated properly and respectfully. The investigation needs to take place too. All of the information that you've seen coming out of different sources needs to be verified, and we now need to look at the consequences for this. And we call on Russia to do its part in ensuring that the separatists really do engage with the monitors and engage with those who are trying to investigate the scene at the present time.
Voor Nederland liggen alle opties op tafel en het is duidelijk dat er sinds afgelopen donderdag wel iets is veranderd. En wat er is veranderd zal ook in het beleid van de Europese Unie tot uitdrukking moeten komen. We kunnen niet business as usual hanteren.
Betekent dat er ook echt sancties mogelijk zijn die ook de Nederlandse economie uiteindelijk zouden kunnen raken?
Dit gaat niet meer over economie en handel, dit gaat over veiligheid. Dit gaat over de geostrategische positie van Europa. Dit gaat ook over gerechtigheid voor bijna 200 Nederlanders die op een gruwelijke manier aan hun einde zijn gekomen.
Wir stehen ganz zweifellos vor weichenstellenden Entscheidungen heute im Rat der Außenminister in Brüssel. Und wir treffen uns wenige Tage nachdem bei dem Flug MH17 300 Menschen ums Leben gekommen sind. Die Ursachen werden untersucht, aber viel spricht dafür, dass die Maschine tatsächlich abgeschossen worden sind. Uns eint in Europa die Trauer um die Opfer, aber ebenso die Empörung über den Umgang der Separatisten mit den Leichnamen, zynisch und menschenverachtend, wie wir über viele Tage sehen mussten. Ich glaube, wir haben uns in Europa und auch wir Deutschen bemüht, zu einer Entschärfung der Lage beizutragen. Niemand kann uns den Vorwurf machen, dass wir nicht das Gespräch gesucht hätten, immer wieder Angebote gemacht haben, in Verhandlungen einzutreten. Zuletzt bei dem Treffen von 4 Außenministern in Berlin, dem Abschluss einer Berliner Vereinbarung, an der Russland beteiligt war. Gleichwohl, Russland hat seine Verabredungen nicht in dem erforderlichen Maße erfüllt, insbesondere über viele Tage keinerlei Distanz zum Verhalten der Separatisten erkennen lassen und vor allen Dingen es nicht vermocht oder aber nicht organisiert, dass die Grenze zur Ukraine endlich dicht gemacht wird und Kämpfer und Waffen vor allen Dingen nicht weiter einsickern können. Daraus müssen wir und werden wir heute unsere Schlüsse ziehen. Der Rat der ständigen Repräsentanten der Botschafter hier in Brüssel hat gestern Abend Vorbereitungen aufgenommen, Entscheidungsvorlagen erarbeitet für den heutigen Tag und ich sage, wir bleiben weiterhin offen, mit allen politischen, auch diplomatischen Mitteln zur Entschärfung beizutragen. Aber es wird notwendig sein, diese Bereitschaft zu begleiten durch höheren Druck, das heißt auch in schärfere Maßnahmen einzutreten.
Look, everybody wants to see a balanced set of measures as we go forward, but the world has changed since the European Council last week. The events of last Thursday have changed public expectations on us, and we have to send a clear signal from our meeting today that we recognise that and that we are going to go further as a consequence of what has happened.
This Council of today should send a very clear message that such kind of support to separatists, which are actually turning into terrorists, has to cease. And second, I think that one thing which is not only sanctions but also security of the European Union and NATO is that this Council also have to seriously consider ban on all kind of exports of military technologies, military equipment to Russia.
It's possible to go further with the list of people, like in the European Council, or maybe to go further with economic sanctions. We will have the discussions on that. There are two separate issues. First, the international independent inquiry, because it is very important for the victims and to know what was the reality in this crash. But the other side, the other thing is to enhance the pressure on Russia. And I'm sure that we need to discuss about the different type of sanctions.
The priority must be to have a safe return of the bodies and the remains, the preservation of the site, to facilitate an international investigation which must be independent and which must be given sufficient powers to discover the facts of the issue. I think it's important that takes place in the context of ensuring that we have no further toleration of aggression on the part of Russia.
What happened in the skies over eastern Ukraine is the result of the continued deliveries of sophisticated weaponry to the so-called separatists in eastern Ukraine, and it is that cause of the war there and of the shooting down that needs to be addressed.
You know, growing evidence about who is behind the acts of terror, or let's say this shooting of the plane, and we know who is behind this terrorist. We also know how heavy weapons, rocket launchers and tanks were going through the border at the same time where statements were made about securing the border. And now the accusations to others, but not admitting responsibility to themselves. So that I believe really a lot of versions around, and instead of accepting the responsibility, others are blamed, and this is widespread, worldwide, I would say. So that's my point. So we really should take very seriously not only these military actions, but also propaganda moves.
What we've been seeing, particularly since the end of June, since the European Council then, is a significant escalation of the supply of heavy weapons, tanks, missiles, rockets, fighters, to what is happening the pro-Russian separatists in eastern Ukraine. The shooting down of the Malaysian airliners is a consequence of this particular policy. If you supply arms and missiles, as the Russians have been doing, these things are bound to happen. And then, of course, they are playing on the seeing what we will do. And I will say what we need to do, we need to preserve the unity of Europe and the unity of the West. If we stay together, the Americans and the Europeans, we can handle the situation. If we are weak and divided, it's going to be even more dangerous.
I hope we will be able to agree that if not, Russia immediately will cooperate in order to get access to where the flight has crashed. Of course, deliver the bodies to the nearest in the Netherlands, and of course also cooperate in general with the access. Then I think it should have consequences, and I think we need then further sanctions in the economic field. But I definitely also hope that we will not get into that stage, because we all hope that we can get a cooperation with Russia. But it's now time that Russia is not talking peace in diplomatic circles, and then on ground actually is acting very differently. I think it's time that Mr. Putin is recognizing that this has been a wake-up call. The tragedy of the plane needs to make this violence stop.
El punto fuerte es desligar las sanciones de la investigación sobre la tragedia del avión, por grave que sea, porque esa investigación puede durar tiempo y puede no ser concluyente, y vincular más bien las sanciones al suministro de armas por parte de Rusia a los separatistas.
What we are going to discuss at the Foreign Affairs Council is, first of all, I think the first step is to enable the Dutch government and all the other governments whose citizens have died in the downing of the plane, to enable them to transport the remains of their people to their countries, to enable a completely thorough and independent investigation of what has happened. And based on that, there will be discussion of two possible ways of additional sanctions. One is adding individual names and entities or companies to the list of the sanctioned sanctioned persons and entities, and the other is going to the third stage. I think that will, to a large extent, depend on the investigation, and the third stage are economic sanctions.
Ja, der Abschuss des Flugzeuges ist eine unfassbare Katastrophe, und jetzt ist die oberste Priorität, dass es eine rasche Aufklärung gibt und vor allem auch, dass die Opfer bestattet werden können. Ich glaube, das ist jetzt in dieser Situation das Mindeste. Ich werde heute auf jeden Fall die Möglichkeit nutzen, mich wieder dafür einzusetzen, dass es ein Verbot der Waffenlieferungen von der Europäischen Union nach Russland gibt. Das habe ich schon als Vorschlag vorgebracht in der Ratssitzung am 20. Februar. Ich glaube, heute sind mehr und mehr Außenminister für diesen Vorschlag. Ich glaube, das wäre ein wichtiger Schritt.